So we're here at the Business Analysis Conference Europe 2022, and I've managed to collar someone who isn't speaking this year, but has written a number of articles for BAE Digest on group construct analysis. There's about 6 of them in total, and it's an ongoing series. Really, really interesting. I recommend that you get your hands on a copy if you can. So I'm really pleased to say I'm joined by Nick de Voil of de Voil Consulting. So Nick, thanks for taking this opportunity to have a chat.
My pleasure, Adrian, as always.
So Nick, you've written, I think it's 6 articles now.
I think it's 6
so
far.
On the beginnings of a book, it would seem, on group construct analysis. So for people who haven't read those articles yet, what is it?
So if you're working in an organisation, there's a language that people talk in the organisation, and there's certain ideas that are okay in the organisation, certain ideas that are not okay, maybe some that are controversial, and there's some things that everyone takes for granted in the organisation. And it's the same in all kind of groups of people. It's not just organisations, could be teams, could be society as a whole, could be smaller groups of people. And the funny thing is about these narratives or this discourse, if you like to use a kind of fancy term, we tend not to be aware of it. We tend not to be aware of these things that we're taking for granted. And we've got a word for that. It's called common sense. So when we talk about common sense, it's these things that everyone in our group or in our society, they all take these things for granted. And so what that means is normally people are not aware of these things. If you're working in an organization, you can't see these things. It's a bit like a fish swimming in a pond. The fish is not aware of the water. It's probably never even heard of water. So what group construct analysis is, it's a set of ideas, set of tools that allows you as a business analyst to see that water that's surrounding everyone. It allows you to maybe to understand a bit better what's going on when people would talk and communicate within the organization. It allows you to sort of intervene in those conversations maybe more effectively, influence people, maybe understand how people are influencing you or influencing each other. And perhaps most importantly for a business analyst, be able to effectively facilitate conversations between stakeholders. It's a technique it starts off with looking at the individual, because before we can really understand the way the people interact with each other, we need to be able to understand what's different between different individuals. So it's got a lot in common with traditional requirement solicitation techniques that business analysts be familiar with, but it takes more of a sort of an empathetic sort of user experience oriented type of way of approach to relating to people. And this is something that I got interested in when I was studying human-computer interaction, because human-computer interaction is just applied psychology, really. So it's about psychology. It's based on the ideas of George Kelly, who wrote about personal construct psychology way back decades ago. But it's also got ideas from sociology, anthropology, linguistics. So it's a whole range of stuff.
It's really interesting. As you were talking there, Nick, I've not really thought about this before, and it may be a curveball that's completely unrelated, but I was thinking about communities of practice, and some of, I may be mispronouncing the author's name, but Etienne Wenger,
yeah.
And I remember him talking about communities of practice having a shared repertoire.
Yeah.
And so is group construct analysis sort of tapping into that shared repertoire and making it explicit where it might be normally implicit?
I think that's right. Yeah. So as I say, all different groups do have that shared repertoire, as you say. It's a good way of putting it. So it's things that people say and also things that people do as well. And that's one of the things that I like to do with group construct analysis, and not just looking at what people say, but also what they do, because of course the values that an organization has or that an individual has, they are most reliably seen in what they actually do rather than what they say.
Yeah. Interesting. So if you were to think about, I don't know, techniques or diagrams or concepts that BAs could take away from GCA and use, what sort of things could would spring to mind?
Well, it's very informed by causal loop diagrams that we have in systems thinking. So it is very much a systems thinking type approach. So I use something called a construct map, and I draw it different ways depending on what I'm trying to do with it. But it's basically very simple. You've got blobs. Blobs represents so-called constructs, and a construct is just an idea that or a thing that is real in someone's mind, a thing that means something to someone, or that means something to the organization, and they're joined together with linkages. Those can be just simple lines that don't really mean anything very specific, or they can, there's a range of different specific types of linkages you can have between them. So you could say something is part of something else.
Yeah.
We could say something is a sort of something else. Or we could say something is more important than something else. So different things like that. So it's quite a rich set of symbols you can use, but at the same time, it doesn't really impose any constraints. You can draw it however you like.
You've got the flexibility to sort of flex it for the context rather than getting caught up in the notation type of thing. Fantastic. So where can people find out more about group constructs analysis?
Well, the best place to go is BA Digest
Of
at
course.
the moment. Yes.
Yeah.
I've done a couple of talks about it at conferences over the last year or two, and I'm hoping to do more. I'm hoping to run some workshops. So if anyone's interested in attending a workshop, please just get in touch. Other than that, as you say, there could be a book at some point in the future.
Fingers crossed. So Nick, at the conference generally, because we're in the sort of second day now, what kind of key themes or takeaways are really jumping out from the sessions you've attended and the conversations you've had?
Well, I think it's, as you say, second day of the conference, it's quite hard to look past the keynote we had this morning.
Well, that's true, yeah.
Was just fairly mind-blowing. And it was certainly, touched on subjects like activism, climate change, and stuff that I'm very, very into.
It was a very
anyway.
holistic systems thinking, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, serious. I think systems thinking actually has been in the background of a few talks without necessarily being mentioned explicitly. So, for example, Lynn Gervin did a great talk yesterday afternoon where she only used the word system once, but it was all about systems thinking, really, taking a systems approach to organisation.
Well, there's certainly a lot of Checkland in mine, but there's always a lot of Checkland in mine. But no, that is interesting because even the keynote, I was thinking, Vickers, appreciative inquiry and appreciation. That, and then the sort of sense respond type of thing. So yeah, interesting. I hadn't really picked up there is perhaps an undercurrent of systems thinking. So fantastic. Well, Nick, I'm sure people will also want to know more about you, will want to follow you, connect with you. How's the best way for people to get in touch?
Twitter or LinkedIn. I think there's two people called Nick de Voil in the world. It's quite easy. I'm the one that's in England, not Australia.
Yes, yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, Nick, thanks. Always great to catch up with you.
Absolutely, my pleasure, Adrian.
Fantastic. So if you've enjoyed this interview, do continue to follow us on social media. We'll be publishing more. We'll be getting as many as we can during the conference. So be sure to subscribe and check for further updates. But bye for now.